Good morning, Year 10. I hope you're well and having a lovely day. So today we're going to be doing a poem called Bright Star, so please could you write the date and that title in your book. After that, I would like you to do the do now, which is to write down 3 quotations from a song from memory. For at least one of these quotations, I would like you to do a quotation explosion to explore language and structure devices within that quotation. So please pause the video for about 5 minutes to do that now. So for this lesson you will need a printout of the poem that you can annotate, or if you don't have a printer, I've attached a Word version and a PDF version. On the Word version, you can use functions in Word to annotate it online. However, ideally, you will be able to print it and annotate it by hand. A pencil for first thoughts and ideas, and different coloured pens or highlighters. So can you please pause the video to make sure you have everything you need. So, Bright Star. What can we work out from this title? What do we associate with the words bright and star? And what kind of tone are we expecting from a poem with this title? So please pause the video in order to answer these questions. Okay, so bright star, giving out or reflecting much light, shining, and a star is a fixed luminous point in the sky. In terms of tone, something positive, hopeful, potentially seeking guidance. So these are some potential ideas you may have jotted down. However, if yours are slightly different, don't worry, it is quite subjective. Okay, now for our first reading. Bright Star. Bright star, would I were steadfast as thou art, not in lone splendour, hung aloft the night, and watching, with eternal lids apart, like nature's patient, sleepless eremite, the moving waters at their priest-like task of pure ablution round earth's human shores, or gazing on the new soft fallen mask of snow upon the mountains and the moors. No, yet still steadfast, still unchangeable, pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast, to feel for ever its soft fall and swell, awake for ever in a sweet unrest. Still, still, to hear her tender taken breath, and so live ever, or else swoon to death. Please give yourself time to read over the poem a couple more times, getting to grips with its content. It's okay not to understand every word or idea at this point. You're just trying to get a feel for the poem. So I'd like you to consider the following questions and then answer them in your book. What is the mood of the poem? Who is speaking? Who are they speaking to? And how do they feel? So please pause the video to do that now. So the best way to get to first grips with this poem is to ignore the section between the dashes for the moment, and we will come back to it. So we're just looking at the parts which haven't been crossed through. This crossed out section is explaining in which ways the poet doesn't want to be like the star. The speaker wants the star's constancy to be steadfast, but to be fixed on a different view to the star. So what does the speaker want to be able to feel and hear forever? So pause the video for a moment, reread those lines, and write down the answer in your book. So please pause the video to do that. Okay, so let's read it together. No, yet still steadfast, still unchangeable, pillowed upon my fair love's ripening breast, to feel forever its soft fall and swell. So those are the key lines there. The poet wants to lay his head upon his lover's breast and feel that rising and fall, a bit like the sea, feel her heartbeat and share that moment of intimacy. So where the star looks down with a great physical distance between it and the earth, he wants to have that greater intimacy whilst maintaining the constancy of a star's presence. So there's a picture that should help you visualize exactly what he wants to feel and experience forever, and in terms of what he wants to hear her tender taken breath. So he wants to hear her breathing, basically. So a very loving portrayal. Let's now look back at the bit we crossed out before, which is now highlighted. So the highlighted section is explaining in which ways the poet doesn't want to be like a star. He describes how the star is alone, watching the earth from a distance. The star is described to be like an eremite, a hermit, meaning it is removed from society and isolated. The star can see earth and its beauty, much of which is described with reference to purity, but it cannot touch the earth. So in what ways does the speaker not want to be like the star? You could answer that by referring back to the paragraph on this slide. So please pause the video to answer that question now. And there you've got a picture of a hermit. Okay, so now you understand the speaker's situation and the tone of the poem. You need to read through it again, this time with a pencil, ready to annotate your ideas. What can you pick out about how those feelings are presented? What devices does Keats use to convey his feelings? On the second reading, don't forget to comment on form and structure, as well as language techniques. Also consider the rhyme schema meter. Is there a regular rhyme schema meter? Do you recognise the form this poem takes? What do you notice about the punctuation, and what is the effect of the poem being written in a single sentence? So can you please pause the video now for about 10 to 15 minutes in order to do your own annotations, and please do take the time to do this rather than just going on to our shared annotations, as it's a really important skill that you'll need for your exam to be able to make your own annotations on a poem. So please pause the video to do that now. Okay, so this time I'm going to take you through the poem, mentioning key details you could annotate. On this third reading, you could add to your copy of the poem in pen, confirming your own pencil ideas and adding more to it. So punctuation is used to separate out how the speaker wants and doesn't want to be like a star. The dashes help to mark out this long clause of things he does not want, providing contrast from this distance to the close touch he seeks. The poem is written in a single sentence, perhaps to imply that it's a burst of feeling or emotion expressed as one idea. Lines run onto each other and called enjambment to show this passionate outpouring of feeling. The poem is a sonnet of 14 lines, written in an iambic pentameter, 10 syllables per line, designed to reflect the rhythm of natural speech. As I am is a didum sound, often linked to the heartbeat. It follows the thought pattern of an Italian sonnet, with an octave, 8-line section, focused on the star, giving way to a sestet, 6-line section, focused on the lovers. The rhyme scheme follows that of traditional Shakespearean sonnet. Keats was a known admirer of Shakespeare and might have been keen to imitate the romance and tragedy inherent in the hero's work. Concluding with a rhyming couplet also gives the final thoughts additional resonance. So this is our third reading and analysis together. So steadfast. The poet wants to be a constant. Perhaps this is the North Star, a guiding light for sailors to navigate. Thou, meaning you, addressing the star directly, personifying the star, so making it into a person. Lone has negative connotations, whereas splendor contrasts and suggests something beautiful and perhaps unattainable. Aloft, this emphasizes the difference between the star and everything it looks down upon on the earth. Eternal. This has connotations of eternity and forever. Lids are references to eyelids to show the star is always alert and always aware. Here we've got a simile to reference the star as being hermit-like, watching the earth calmly, but never being close to it, never being near from it, really set apart. Priest-like and ablutions both have connotations of purity and cleansing. So an ablution is cleansing something through the use of water. Waters are cleansing the earth. We're not told of what, but it could be human sin. So we have a switch here from watching to gazing, a move to the other things the star can see, showing the scale of its perspective. Then we have the soft fallen mask of snow. The idea of covering in white emphasizes purity and cleansing, but also adds a chilling feel. What is it that's underneath the mask? Is it perhaps evil, and this need to be priest-like and heal and save again could indicate that there is evil that people need to be saved from. And finally, we've got the alliteration of mountains and moors, two isolated places. So this whole first stanza creates a feel of isolation. There is that constancy that Keats so desperately craves in this poem, but the first octave it has a very mournful tone, as although the star is there for eternity, it's so far away and it can never get close to the things it looks upon. So now we've got the lover sestet. So we've got a no to start off with, emphasised with the dash straight afterwards. It's an interjection to break against the first section of the poem, and it could be termed as a volta, which is a point of change in a sonnet. So you've got another mention of steadfast. The constancy is important, so it's repeated in two synonyms, steadfast and unchangeable. Still, being repeated here also emphasises the significance. This is a feature that the writer wants to share with the star. Pillowed, fair, soft, sweet, tender. The language here focuses on softness and femininity, and it's a more gentle and loving tone than we saw in the first stanza. In the first half of this poem. You've got the word ripening, which has connotations of development or growing, and also grown to the point at which you are ready. Hints at the lover's youth and beauty, as well as hinting at the physical shape being voluptuous. You've got the fall and swell, indicative of the natural rhythm of breathing, referring to the chest rising and falling. It's also reminiscent of water's movement in the first section of the poem, showing the beauty of nature seen by the star is echoed or mirrored in the natural beauty of the lover. However, the star witnesses something pure and cleansing. The sensuality of this image is less pure, perhaps. Ever is repeated 3 times, links back to the eternal reference earlier in the poem, seeking constancy. And then you have sweet and rest, an oxymoron. Sweet having connotations of joy and happiness and pleasant things, unrest, discomfort, and potentially anxiety. It shows the lack of sleep will be pleasant in this case, however. Still. The word still is emphasized through the use of repetition, and this emphasizes constancy, even in contrast to the movement of the lover's breast. Then you've got alliteration of tender taken to emphasize softness and delicacy. And finally, swoon to death, hyperbole of the other option. If he can't be with her, he'll faint and die, an exaggerative effect, but again showing just how much he loves her and just how much he cares for her. Could you please now take a moment to review your notes and make sure they include reference to the speaker and their feelings, perspectives, 3 quotations at least, literary terminology, notes on language and structure, and notes on key themes. You're going to spend the last 5 minutes of the lesson making sure that you know the quotations you've chosen really well, and you can do that using any of the methods on this slide that we've talked through previously. So please pause the video for 5 minutes to do that now. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's lesson. Thank you very much for your hard work, and see you next time.